I did, after he stabbed them, find the key on the man in that pouch on his belt, but never found the safe, because then Zak totally went berserk and he was running around like a headless chicken. And I went upstairs to go and look for the safe, because I had a feeling it had to be in their room or somewhere thereabouts. And he came after me with the stairs and said, no, we have to go, we have to go, we have to go. So I said, what about the money and everything? And he just, no, we have to go. I'm going with or without you. So it was a cleaning spree of picking up things and making sure there's nothing. Beforehand, we got gloves and everything, so you knew just you had to make sure you take everything with you that you brought. And then while we were there, someone phoned to come in as well, and I had to change my voice and talk on the phone there. And when we left, there were cars coming by, and I was standing at the gate to hold it so that he can come out, because we couldn't find the remote to open the gate with. He had to press the thing there where you talk on the thing to come in, that intercom thing. Yeah, and then jump in the car and come down. So I had to stand in front of the eye at the gate to get him out. It was all crazy. And then as we left, where normally I would get rid of stuff like driving around and throw it in the dustbin far away, we got rid of the stuff out of the windows, which was very stupid.
You said that certain things did not go according to your plan, or the plan. What was the plan, and who planned this? Who planned the plan?
Zak and John and I. John was not supposed to be actively going there ever or anything, because he didn't want to be recognized, because we weren't supposed to kill them. I wasn't scared to go for the lie detector test, because I didn't kill them, so I thought maybe I could get away with I don't know how it works, you know. So I wasn't that scared to go. But he was scared because he knew he killed them, and if they do a lie detector test on him, it was people from Krugersdorp police station that said on the 7th of January we were supposed to be there. I remember the date because I know someone that has a birthday that day, and he didn't want to go. So in December already, he said he has to fake his own death so that he can get away and go and live in a little house at the sea or something.
Okay.
So that's why he planned his death. Okay, so he wanted to pretend to go on holiday. Now, at that stage, LaRue was already involved. Before, LaRue didn't go with us on anything, but what happened is, in between the first murder and there, I discovered that Zak made use of LaRue for cleaning up afterwards, after he killed Nat. Apparently, then already had him help clean his car and everything. I never knew LaRue was involved or that he knew about it. He kept it away from me. I didn't know my son was involved. So by the time that we got there to Zak's faking it, by then I knew already, and LaRue was actively involved. Okay, so it was LaRue and I and John and Zak. And what we basically did is we had to get someone to be a body in the car and then burn the car so that it would look like Zak died. So on the 16th of December, on the public holiday after having family day with everyone and everyone seeing us and everything, we left. Zak picked up, I wasn't with him in the car when he did, he picked up Jared Jackson that we knew from before, who wanted to go somewhere with him, and he said he thinks they're more or less the same build, so we took him along. John and I drove in the car behind them. LaRue and Zak was in the car in the front with Jared. And LaRue sat behind Jared so that he could strangle him. So they basically had stuff to drink as well, and whatever, they was like they're going on a trip. And then halfway to our destination, the car started swinging around on the road, so I was a bit worried because I could see they were trying to strangle him and he didn't want to die. Then a little bit further they stopped and they said they weren't sure if he's dead. Zak had his insulin that he used for diabetes, for a backup plan. If the guy didn't want to die, he could give him an overdose of that. It was LaRue's first killing, so they weren't sure if between the two of them, if LaRue would be able to do it. So he took his insulin along. So when they stopped the car at a farm road there, they asked me, they didn't know whether he's dead. So they called me to the front car to come and see, and LaRue was still holding he called it a chokey around his neck. And I told them the guy's definitely dead. So then they didn't want to drive with a dead guy. They were too scared between the three of them. So they came and they put him in the Mercedes with me in the back, and I drove him, and they drove the car in the front. And then they stopped what felt like ages later, I don't know how many kilometers, at the spot that Zak picked. And we swapped cars so that they pushed the Mercedes off the road and put Jared in the driver's seat and torched the whole thing. And then I was already waiting in the other car, in the driver, and I drove them all back.
Okay, let us just go backwards a couple of steps. You testified now that Zak and John and yourself planned this whole exercise of him faking his death because of the polygraph test.
Yeah.
Now, John and LaRue both testified that the reason for this operation, let me call it that way, was done because they wanted money to claim from his policy. Are you aware of that? That being the main reason for faking it.
I'm aware of the allegations, but it's not true. There was never any talk about a policy until he died. How would he get the money? So, okay, when they torched it, we drove a few kilometers and then stopped, and they threw the cans of this paraffin or petrol, whatever they used, I don't know. They threw it in the veld, and we drove home. And that's it. Okay, and driving home, I mean, I drove the car to where Zak said he was originally going to hide, at a place in Krugersdorp there where you can pay for a room. The herberg or something like that. Yes. I stopped there and dropped him off, and he went in. He pre-arranged for him to have a room there before.
Now, Zak testified that he became unconscious while driving towards Clarence at Van der Bijl Park, and then near Marinda Steyn, he actually saw you, where you told him that you would just stay as you are, there's trouble, but we will explain that tomorrow. You must come with us back to Krugersdorp. Do you know anything about that?
No, he's lying. Of course he's lying.
Who drove the vehicle back to Krugersdorp?
Who towed the vehicle?
Who drove?
I drove the vehicle back.
And where was accused one sitting?
Zak was sitting in the back. I can't remember with LaRue and John which one was sitting where, but Zak had a wig that he put on, so that because of his slightly bald head, it's very obvious if people see him on cameras, if I maybe trip off a speed camera or anything, he was disguised and sitting at the back. And there was nothing wrong with him.
So, when at first would you say that accused 2 knew about something happening to accused 1?
You mean now with Zak faking his death?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I get a bit confused with the accused 1 and 2.
The 2 is Cecilia.
Okay.
1 is Zak.
The next morning, I went downstairs and I said, listen, I haven't heard back from Zak, and he said he's going, that's how Zak and I planned it. He said he's going to send me an SMS or WhatsApp or whatever to let me know that he's arrived safely at the place where he was going to do his fishing. And then Cecilia also tried to get hold of him and she couldn't. And I also said that I left messages the previous night already on his phone to say, contact us, we're worried about you and whatever. He was pretending to not feel well the previous day as part of the plan, but there wasn't anything wrong with him. So Cecilia and I got very worried, and eventually I can't remember who now said, well, why don't you phone the police and hear if there were any accidents? And we were phoning, and before I could even get hold of a policeman to tell me there's something wrong, Cecilia got through to the, I think, Marinda Steyn police, and they told her that there was a car accident there with a black Mercedes, or a burned out car or whatever, I don't know what the words were. So, and we know he drives the black Mercedes and he was on that road, so that was the first that I think that she heard about.
Were you aware that at that stage Cecilia was the beneficiary of Jacques' life policy?
Yes and no, because he always said that his parents and Cecilia and Michaela were. And then Michaela died, and I never knew how he changed it. So, as I said, the policy was never discussed with me. It was never an issue. The issue here was for Jacques to get away. So, according to me, until everything happened, Jacques and Michaela and his parents were a third each beneficiaries on his. That was in my knowledge. Obviously, I was wrong.
Now, were you not concerned that Leroux would have told accused 2 what actually occurred?
Yes, I was scared of that the whole time. I was scared of that the whole time, but since he committed the actual crime, he wanted to, for the first time, do that. I didn't think he would, split on himself, give himself away. But yes, that's when the nightmare started. That's when I realized this is getting out of hand now.
You testified in all these murders, accused 2 knew nothing. Why did you keep it from her? She was your close friend.
I would say the first most important thing for me was fear of rejection, because she's not the type of person that would associate herself with it. Fear of getting caught is the biggest, for any person, your instinct. She would say I had to go and confess. I would imagine how I told her, and she would say, I will help you, they'll let you see a psychologist, they will do this, they will do that, and no. And then, of course, her health as well. At that point, it was leading a double life with making sure she's okay, making sure my children is okay, which then ended up to being just myself, and praying for Leroux not to do anything stupid.
Now, accused 2 testified that she actually believed the whole story of Jacques' death. What did you say?
Yeah, she did. And the thing is, she was very upset and she cried and everything. So I cried as well. I'm not a very good actress or anything, but if you love someone and they're very upset, it's easy to cry with them. So it was not that difficult for me to pretend that I was upset with his death as well, because she was really genuinely distraught.
Leroux also testified that on that specific day, that's on the 16th of December 2015, himself and accused 2 crushed a number of pills for the sole purpose of putting it in a juice, and that would be given to Jared on the way. Do you have any knowledge of that?
No, he's lying. I don't know why he would think to say anything like that, because Cecilia wasn't involved. She didn't know anything, and on that day, we were having a huge family day at her house. So there was, again, that situation where everybody was visiting in her room. The only lonely place where you could do something where no one would see would be in the toilet, and the toilet's very small. So I don't know where, if they had to crush pills together, they would have done that. It doesn't make any sense for him thinking out a story like that.
Let us move over to the McGregor murder. There was also testimony of Leroux that alluded to the fact, or he actually said that accused 2 actually planned or was in charge of planning this murder. What would you say to that?
It's not true. John knew the man. He told Jacques and me about him long before it ever happened. I already heard of this guy more than a year or whatever before. It was a friend of John's. And at the point that I went to kill him, it was to get money for Jacques to pay for the plot. So it was between Jacques and Leroux and me and John, although it was very difficult because Jacques was already living on the plot then. Communication was very difficult. Okay. On the day of his murder, it was John that drove the car, and Leroux and I went there with him. John waited in the car under a tree behind the fence sort of the other house there, and Leroux and I went in. I told him a story that I want to see him about some business of testament or something and tax, and he let us in. He was very jolly, It was like he was expecting us and we were family. It was very weird. And then again, like previously, I took out the gun and I said, well, this is not how it's going to work. This is basically a robbery. And he started laughing and didn't take it seriously. And that was a point where LaRue sort of manhandled him and said, lie down or whatever, lie down on the floor. And he actually lunged for LaRue like a rugby lunge, going for someone. And I panicked at that moment and I pulled the trigger and I shot him twice. Then he was man down. Then I basically wanted to get money from him first, so we bound him and we searched the house and couldn't find anything. He didn't even have bank cards or anything there. It was like somebody told him beforehand, be careful, that don't have anything at your house, you live on a plot or whatever. There was just nothing. So all that was left, I then decided, is to take his phone and do some internet banking, which was not very smart, but I thought I would think of an excuse later. Then I asked him for he was lying on the floor. I asked him for his PIN. He gave me the correct one, then lied the wrong one. So it took quite a while. Eventually I got into his bank account. There was in that bank account just 6,000 rand, which I then transferred to one of my bank accounts. And then he wasn't dead yet, so LaRue said he wanted to strangle him, which he did. But they say he died of the bullet wound, so I think he was going to die anyhow.
John testified that he was actually the driver of the vehicle and that he waited inside the car.
Mm-hmm. John.
You never,
yeah.
That's John. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. John drove the car there, and LaRue and I went in, and John stayed in the car under the tree.
And LaRue testified that Marcel was actually with during the murder. What did you have to say about that?
No, she was never there.
So LaRue was not talking the truth?
No, he's lying.
Why would you think that he would have framed his sister?
He's been jealous of her since she was born. So she always achieved what he didn't achieve in life. He always said that I spoiled her. So I can just think it's one of the reasons.
LaRue also testified that 6,000 rand that you transferred from the victim's account to yours, you actually told him to withdraw that money the next day.
No. I withdrew the money from the ATM the next day because I didn't want the money in my account.
And what did you do with the money?
Paid my debts, put petrol in my car,
Evidence,
few of it, and then the rest I gave to LaRue to take to Zak at the plot.
because the evidence from LaRue was that he drew the money and then the money was then used to pay accused two's psychologist, shrink, as he eloquently called it.
The why I went for the 6,000 and it was a nice amount is it cost about 3,000 rand a month to keep Zak with food and a place to live and everything. So that would have been for 2 months. So I just covered a bit of my costs with it, and then the rest I sent to Zak.
Let's go over to the Schofield murder. Who planned this one?
Basically LaRue and I.
How did the planning come about?
The thing is, we couldn't keep up with taking Zak money, and Zak was starting to threaten to go to the police, and he wanted to phone his grandmother. He was missing his grandmother, and he was threatening all different ways and we were too far in the story to now say, okay, now we're going to go to the police. So we had to keep him happy. So the ideal way was to then eventually get him to go and live somewhere else and take care of himself under a different identity. But for then, we had to get him at least enough money every month to pay the plot. And the woman had my phone number, and she phoned me at school and said he's not paid his rent yet and stuff like that. So the pressure was a bit high. And he started walking around in the area looking for a job and did ridiculous things like that. So between LaRue and I, we decided, well, then we must get more money, and he said, well, I don't know who said it first, but he basically thought of the plan that Zak has all these people that he knows that has a lot of money. He has clients and co-workers. He was a financial advisor, so LaRue had access to his papers and stuff, because he worked for him. So he came up with the numbers. Which one of them was first again? Sorry, did you say Schofield? Because
Yeah, let's
Schofield
talk
was
about
was my broker as well.
So I understand now the planning and why the planning was done. What was the accused two's role, if any, in the planning of this murder?
She had nothing to do with anything. She didn't know anything about it. In fact, at that point in time, I drove to school with a bicycle and she forbid me to do it because she said it's too dangerous. When these murders took place, she insisted that I don't drive my bicycle because I was the same age as some of these people and it's dangerous. She didn't know anything about anything.
Because LaRue testified specifically that accused two gave him instructions to actually look for someone, again, with money. And after the murder, he had to give the victim's cards to accused two. What would you say on that?
No, he's lying. Ma'am, I wanted to kill the man for my reasons. Whether I am wrong or was wrong, or whether it was valid for another person, those are the reasons that I killed him.
You vehemently deny that you as a mother took accused 3, your daughter, with you to go and kill Michaela.
I deny that, yes, definitely.
And there was no story that you wanted her to get her first taste of a killing.
No.
Page 29 of your plea agreement. After the murders of Natasha, Joyce and Reg, Michaela became disillusioned in respect of the criminal activities of her husband, accused number 1, and the other accused in the main trial. There we hear that big mistake again. Again, Cecilia is included. Mistake by your legal counsel.
Please, can we have her clarify that? Because in my notes between me and her, it's not there. And I wasn't aware of this wrong sentence as well. Then I would have had it taken out.
Ma'am, what level of education did you obtain?
I studied a BA degree and a HED diploma afterwards.
And you were a teacher?
Yes.
And you can appreciate the importance of reading through a document which is going to place you in custody for the rest of your life. Not so? Or you didn't care?
I think most important for me at that point was just getting it signed and getting it sentenced so that it's done.
So you didn't worry if there was anything that is not correct in this document?
No, I trusted her that there won't be anything wrong in this document.
Strange coincidence that the 2 big mistakes are repeated when accused 2 is relevant.
I'm sorry, you would have to clarify it with her, ma'am.
No, ma'am, you are the person who signed this document. Now, we have evidence before this court that Michaela was killed in such a vicious manner that the pathologist called it overkill, that she was even stabbed after death, and that it is close to a crime of passion because the person executing these stab wounds was emotional. And that was you, only. Do you agree?
I agree that it was me only, but I don't think I was emotional.
How many times did you stab that deceased?
I don't know until she looked like she's dead. Ma'am, if I'm allowed to say so, LaRue has been jealous of his sister his whole life. When he was in standard 6, he declared his love to Cecilia publicly at a public occasion and said one day he's going to marry her. So he's always had issues with both of them, and he hates women, me included. So I can just think for myself why he would do that. I am not a psychologist and I don't know.
On that point, you never planned to kill your own son?
No.
Not for policy, not after him, let's call it split on the group in prison? Never. There was no such plan.
No, in fact, I told him before and after he was arrested, and I reminded him that once when he was younger, I also told him, even if you're a murderer one day, I would still be your mother and I would still love you and I would still come and visit you, even if I don't agree with what you do.
Because, ma'am, I put it to you, yourself, and accused two's evidence is almost identical on certain details. Like, who is the leader or was there a leader? You are the eldest, you would take the lead. Those are the words. That's one example. But the rest of the evidence overlaps a lot. Is there
So
any?
maybe we think alike?
Yes, maybe. I would put it to you, my surmise is that it seems as if the teacher and you came out and you rehearsed and drilled this evidence into your memory because you knew what you had to come and say.
I disagree.
This is what you were going to discuss with your children in prison, not so. If you read it.
I'm reading it.
Inter alia, and it's the F word again, I'm not going to say that, but say nothing further. Not so.
Yes, that's something I told Leroux when he was in jail.
Something very interesting is the third bullet. Wat is gesê van wie? Sie wil weet. Do you see that?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Wat vir pa sê. I must have referred to the kid's father.
But sie wil weet. What did she want to know? Who said
I
what?
don't know.
You
I
don't
can't
know.
remember.
Okay.
I
Last
didn't
one.
even remember I had this book.
I would also rather forget it if I were you. I'm going to get to that. John streep Marcel getorture en niks KAK gesê nie. So that's the answer you got. That they didn't speak. Not so. Not so,
I'm
man?
assuming yes, there's an arrow there.
Okay. You deny all knowledge of any satanic connections in this group. Correct.
In this group, yes.
Yes. There was never an orphanage that you knew of.
No.
You were not involved with witches.
No.
And there were no children part of the satanic cult that you knew of that you were going to help.
No.
Then I would like to show you the document that I removed from this bundle for a specific reason. This was the last page to that document. Whatever I owned pays out money can be used towards whatever is needed for the Electus Pedaeus witches, saved or still unsaved, and druids, and our EPD children. Can't put that in my last will and testament. That is why I write it here. Somebody who knows nothing. What is your comment, man?
No comment.
Because this is contradictory to your whole evidence. Agreed?
No.
Not.
No.
No further questions. Thank you, Mama.
As I said before, I wanted also to feel what it feels like to kill someone, and I wanted to kill him.
When did you get that urge?
Since I heard about them killing Nat and getting away with it, I kept on thinking about Reg and thinking, now imagine I could kill him and then he's not a problem anymore.
I thought you refer them will be with reference to case number 1 and Michaela.
Zak and Michaela, yes.
So after you've heard what happened at that scene, you thought by yourself, I want to do this as well.
Yes.
And then you asked number 1 to join you in this second killing.
That's correct.
And how did it feel?
You honestly want me to answer that?
Yes.
Although it could be offensive to other people.
It's not.
It was an adrenaline rush to be there. It was scary but exciting at the same time. And to actually do it, I felt a release after doing it, like I've never felt before in my life.
You felt good.
Yes. It felt like I did something that I was waiting to do my whole life, to get rid of something bad here, and then it's like it's gone. And I did it.
So you felt a sense of achievement. You've done it. You wanted all the time. You've done it. Now you feel very good.
No, more like a release. Like tension building up in you, and there's a release. Like an exam that you wrote, and you had all this tension before the time, and then you wrote it and you realized, well, I finished it and I think I'm passing it. That type of feeling.
And you love the adrenaline rush, as you put it.
It's the first time in my life I experienced it, and yes, I liked it.
That's why you murdered again?
No, it was never the same again.
Why not?
It was only like that the one time.
Only with Ben Dixon?
Yes.
No adrenaline rush with Michaela?
No, I was just scared. Although she was looking like she was sleeping, I hit her over the head first to make sure she doesn't wake up. But it didn't work that way because her head was on the pillow, so her head bounced. So I hit a few times without her reacting at all, and then I thought, okay, you know, that should be it. But then she opened her eyes, and she was hazed, dazed, like she looked like she was drunk, you know, like that type of look on her face. So then I realized that she's not going to resist terribly, or I thought so, I don't know, I didn't think conscious thought like that. Then I started stabbing her, but she turned from the sideways, she turned to look at me, and then I started stabbing her.
So when she looked at you, she was lying on her back?
When she turned, yes, when I stabbed her, she was on her back, but she was lying on her left side, and then when I hit her on her head, she turned towards me. So
what did you hit her on the head?
with a normal hammer.
A hammer?
Yes, a small hammer.
A small one? How big was the head of the hammer? The head?
The normal size average hammer. Yeah.
What kind of hammer?
One that you buy at a hardware store.
And what made you to stop stabbing?
When she stopped breathing.
And moving, I assume.
No, she stopped moving, then she was still breathing, but I stopped when she was stopped.
So you carried on until no more breathing?
Yes.
And then what did you do? You tucked her in.
You know, there's a part that I left out. Before when I started stabbing her and she opened her eyes, she recognized me.
Yes?
And then I told her, Michaela, pray, I'm going to kill you.
Wow.
And she started praying. And she was praying when I killed her, and when she stopped praying, after that she blew out her breath.
And then you tucked it in?
Yes, she was lying on a warm blanket. I remember thinking the blanket must stay on, then the body stays warm, then you don't know what time she was killed, and let it look more decent, and then I left.
And you put the cushion on the head to cover the head?
Now, while I fixed the blanket, one of the pillows fell on her head. I saw it was like, but it wasn't totally over her head. It just sort of fell from its position.
It was not a deliberate move as the tucking in was? The pillow?
I didn't tuck her in. I was just like ordering the place.
Were you full of blood at that stage? Because there was a lot of blood spatter on the walls.
That is very weird, sir, because one hears about that afterwards, but I never remember seeing blood anywhere. Even when I killed Reg and with Michaela, I just remember seeing the body and doing the killing and then making sure myself in the scene. I don't remember being blood on the walls or anything like that. I honestly don't remember that. It's like...
But were there blood on your clothes?
I'm sure there could have been spatters, but none visible. I changed clothes. I had a plastic bag, and I changed clothes in the plastic bag put the ones that I had on in the plastic bag. I was especially worried because of the cats who recognized me and kept on rubbing against me. I had cat hairs all over me. That was a great concern for me. I got to a point before I was sentenced where I got a verse from God saying, confess and you will be forgiven. The Afrikaans is, God is getrou en regverdig om jou te vergewe, maar dit sê eers confess en God is getrou en regverdig om jou te vergewe. Basically means that you have to confess first and then God will forgive you. And I kept on getting that verse again, so in the end I felt that God wants me to confess and get this off, because I could pretend and sit here through a whole trial and pretend I never did any of these and hope to get free from it. But that's not what God wants me to do. My life has to change here. So I went through a whole process and then eventually had peace about it, that that's what God really wants me to do, to start my life over. What I have left of it, I'm 52 years old, I can still mean something to people in jail, even if I have to stay there for the rest of my life, but then it would have to be with God. So that's why I confessed. And I confess and speak the truth. And I would really like to apologize as well, if that's allowed. I've never had a chance. The day that I was sentenced, I was for the first time really faced the pain and the anger of the victims' families. And I didn't say anything on that day. I did turn around and I looked at them because I wanted to see them. And I have nightmares about that because I see the horror on their faces that I would never have wanted to cause anyone. So I wanted to apologize for the harm that I've caused them. I'm sure they would not be ready to forgive me yet, but I did want to apologize. I've seen now the 3 days that I come here as well, people's faces that you can see that it's really, they're still in pain, and felt like I should apologize, but I'm not allowed to speak to anyone. So I thought to say now, I really apologize. I know sorry doesn't do it, but I really am sorry for the pain and the hurt and the anguish and the anger and everything I caused them.
Obviously, I think this is an opportunity for you to apologize. So what do you want to say to the victims?
That I'm very sorry. That it was never my plan to cause harm to so many people. It was never my intention to cause harm to so many people.